Please listen carefully.
Alright, Summer of '84 is a Canadian film directed by three directors, François Simard, Anouk Whissell, and Yoann-Karl Whissell, whose last feature film was also featured at Fantasia, which was Turbo Kid. The plot revolves around a 15-year-old boy called Davy during the summer of 1984 in the suburbs. He's spending the summer with his friends. He plays the game of Manhunt, which is basically a glorified hide and seek. And he witnesses something strange. He learns that there is a serial killer at large in this Pacific Northwest. I think they're in Oregon, which is the place where the film is supposed to take place, even though they clearly shot it in Vancouver. And because of what he sees, he is convinced that his neighbor, who is a police officer, is the serial killer. And the film is all about how he goes about trying to prove it and the ongoing investigation that he's going to lead with his other 15-year-old buddies. So this film clearly is in the vein of things like Stranger Things and just a billion other things that are coming out right now, which could fall in the category of 80s nostalgia porn, from the music to the era to the clothes to the style of film it's emulating. I will, however, say that I think where the movie shines is in the dialogue. One thing that this film gets right is how vulgar all the kids are. They're just constantly swearing and constantly talking about tits. Which feels very real, and which is something that actually not a lot of films get right. They try to tone that down, but the truth is there is nothing more foul-mouthed than a 14 or 15-year-old boy. And then I wouldn't say that the kid actors are all that amazing, but I think the chemistry that they have between them is great, and I think the directors really knew and understood how to get the best out of them. There's a really fun scene where they're all trying alcohol, trying whiskey. I guess for the first time, one of the kids stole whiskey from his dad's liquor cabinet, and the sequence is shot. They're all in a circle in their treehouse, and the camera is at the center of the circle and pans from kid to kid. And every kid that's taking a shot of whiskey is just like grossed out and is like, I can't believe how much it burns, and just finds it disgusting. And the last kid of the bunch, who's sort of the faux rebel, the faux badass, says to them, well, I guess none of you are man enough, takes a swig of whiskey, and clearly doesn't enjoy it, but it's done in a very subtle way. His reaction is absolutely perfect. It's not over the top. He's not spitting out the whiskey. He just, like, has this little look about him, like, oh my god, I must not let out that, I can't stand what I just drank, and just quickly changes the subject. It's like, oh, what about this investigation that you guys are on? And I think that little scene is directed so perfectly, is acted perfectly. I think perfectly illustrates why this film is just that little bit better than what you could expect from this type of movie. So the movie, as you might expect, is heavily influenced in films from the 80s, so The Burbs, Fright Night, Disturbia, which isn't an 80s movie, but it has that suburban rear window feel. If you've seen any of these films, you will know everything that happens within the movie to a T, because it follows that formula absolutely perfectly, up until the last act. And this is where I think the film actually becomes really interesting in what it has to say about nostalgia, because it lulls you into this false sense of comfort by being so formulaic and by abiding so heavily to the movies that you saw as a kid. And then in the last act, it kind of subverts that and transforms the entire experience into something that is darker and something that doesn't really resolve itself, which is going to leave a lot of people frustrated and I think a lot of people angry. But for me, that really served as this interesting meta-commentary almost on what nostalgia is and how we feel so comfortable in what we find familiar. And the fact that it takes that and fucks with it and fucks with the spectator makes the film ultimately very much worth it, even though I am fully willing to admit it isn't perfect. And the context of seeing this film at Fantasia probably improves it a lot. These guys, they're local, they're from Montreal. They're basically made in Fantasia. All their films played here, their short films, their first feature film. So the screening had this very familial, friends and family, communal aspect to it. It was a lot of fun. Divorced from that experience, the faults of the film would probably jump out a lot more. And it really is a perfect Fantasia film, and I'm not sure how it would hold up outside of that context, even though I still think it attempts to do something a little more subversive than their previous. I mean, Turbo Kid really was the movie they would have made had they been 13 and been able to make movies at the time. I'm not certain how much it earns that tonal shift towards the end. It kind of comes out of nowhere. But it was a fun time. I think the movie is still worthwhile, and within the context of Fantasia, it really was just a huge amount of fun. So as always, thanks for watching the video. Hit the like button if you like the review. Consider subscribing if you're not subscribed. And again, a lot of videos forthcoming. And until next time, see ya.